Good morning, everyone. That was quite the intro, I must say. I was sitting here or standing here thinking, is that me? Anyways, really what I want to talk about is how a disability transformed my life. As it was mentioned in the intro, I used to work at the highest ranks of the federal government. Besides fighting for your country in a war, besides that, I held one of the highest offices besides being the Prime Minister for our government. I was the Special Assistant for the Treasury Board. And what that meant was I worked what they called within the inner circle with the Prime Minister's office, and all the laws of the land came from there. And I was a part of that team that concocted these laws that we implemented for our country. Now, I have to explain this because it's paramount to what I do today. I'm an economist. I went to university, college, and my function was to make sure the federal government, the departments, were following the rules that the minister's office was giving them. Now, of course, doing that, you know what all the laws of our country are, what programs we are able to offer, all those kinds of wonderful things. So let's fast forward a little bit now. I work in that capacity for many years. And of course, being a wife, a mom, I'm going to have a child. And with the technology as it is today, I find out as I'm carrying my baby, as I'm pregnant, that the child I was carrying had a disability. And I couldn't figure that out. Like, how can this be? I have 5 kids. My last baby that I'm carrying that has a disability was puzzling because my other ones were what we call normal, no problems. So anyways, of course, I went ahead, had my child, and I had to then make a very, very big decision. When Victoria, my little girl's name, was born, she was very sick. She was born with spina bifida, and I had to basically quit the work that I was doing because I had to fly out to Ottawa all the time. As I mentioned, working with the Prime Minister's office, I had to be out there in Ottawa a lot of the time. And now that this little girl came to the world and was very sick, I had to be with her to take care of her. So I made a very, very, very hard decision to quit my work and stay home with my little girl. And I did. I had the support of the minister that I worked for. He was my boss. I answered to him, and he was very supportive because being a mom, as I'm sure many of you eventually in your future will come into, being a mom is a very important part of our lives in raising our children. So I stayed home to take care of my little girl. But what I never really understood, because as the saying goes, unless you walk the walk, you have no idea. Of course, you hear about disability this, disability that, but unless and until it hits you, you have no clue what it means and what it can do to you. So here I was with this baby. She was born, very scared. This was an unknown scenario that I was in because my baby required very, very different kind of care than the others that I've had that they required. She was very different. And what was happening that was very amazing to me was a lot of my friends and family and neighbors and such knew the position I held within the government. So I always used to have people come up to me and say, oh, you know, I need help with this, or veteran affairs, or fisheries and oceans, or EI, or student loans, whatever the deal was. And I would always seem to kind of give them some advice and kind of help them along. And here I was now, I was at home. I wasn't working for the federal government anymore, the feds as we called it. And I was having people come to me, asking me really crazy questions, issues that they had regarding disability. And I thought that to be strange. Like, what do you mean you're having problems with such and such and so forth? And what really, really made the mark that was the stepping stone to where I am today was this one incident. I was home at the time for maybe about 2 months. I had this lady come to me saying to me that a neighbor of hers was struggling through a battle she was facing with Service Canada. She had lawyers work with her, fighting her cause. Apparently she had applied for a government program called CPP Disability, and she was denied. And this was a battle going on for almost 6 years. And this lady was very, very, very chronically ill. Now, when I heard that, I thought that was the strangest thing. Like, what do you mean? She never got approved for this. And they were like, we don't know. She just never did. Anyway, to make a long story short, I was quite perplexed. And this whole disability concept now, of course, was a huge interest to me, because now I was now in that realm of disability world. And I asked this lady, I said, look, do you think maybe I can meet with this person and find out really what's going on here? And this is bizarre. So anyways, we ended up meeting. I met with this lady. We met at a coffee shop, Tim Hortons. And I was shocked when I was sitting there waiting. I usually arrive early for my appointments. And I was sitting there, and here came this lady with her husband. She had a huge oxygen tank attached to her, with all the tubes. And I looked at her and I thought, what is going on? This is insane. Anyways, we proceeded to meet. We sat down and we chatted. And she explained to me, her scenario, what was going on. They had brought all their paperwork for me to review. Of course, I didn't review it there. So I was very interested and keen. I asked her if she was willing to have me look at her work. I wasn't promising anything, and we would see, I would see what I could do here for her. So I took all my information home, I looked through it, and what I found was that the application was grossly misrepresented, problem over problem over problem. So I went to the minister's office, who was my former boss at the time, and I showed him the case, and I said to him, look, I need ministerial intervention. By the way, this is not something that happens all the time. You don't get ministerial intervention only in very extreme, unique cases. So I had asked him if he was willing to do that. He said, absolutely. He said, I'm going to do this right now. He got on the phone with the proper department. Within 24 hours, the case was opened. I took on the case. I built the case for about 1.5 years. And I stood in front of the tribunal, which is like a court case, and I fought for this lady, and I won. And the funny irony was, here's the glitch, here's the key. I, an economist who worked for the federal government, was battling Service Canada's lawyer, who obviously didn't know Bo Diddley, and I beat him, and we won a landslide case. She won just short of $100,000 for all the years of battling. And that was the beginning of the trek that I then started on. And this is where I realized, people don't know their rights, number one. Number two, when they do apply for these programs, these government disability programs, they're too sick, they're too upset, they're too consumed with their problem to be able to fight and understand what the legislation is and how to tie that legislation to what their disability is. And as sad as it sounds, I even encountered that with my daughter. Here was a baby who was born with spina bifida. If many of you don't know what that is, that's a defect in your spine, which means her nerves to her legs don't work properly. And as a result, in my daughter's case, her disability is not severe. She does walk, but she walks with braces, and if it encompasses long distances, she needs a wheelchair. However, she does get around. But the point is, she is disabled. And I remember when I went to the doctor, her pediatrician, asking him, to fill out some forms for disability because the child was disabled. He didn't understand, and he even went as far as saying, oh, she's not eligible, she's not disabled enough. So there was that other discrepancy. Not only do the people themselves not understand. The doctors don't understand. And it's not their job to understand government legislation or government law. So what happened then as a result of this tribunal case that I fought and won? I then took it upon myself to establish the company that I have called Bree Matson and Associates. We are advocates for the disabled. And for many years, 10 years now, because I've been doing this for 10 years, I've been fighting for the rights of people with disabilities when it comes to government programs and government legislations. Now, fast forward, moving ahead regarding Victoria. Victoria has been doing very, very well. I guess because I'm the kind of person that, although an adversity did hit my life, having a kid with a disability is not easy. Your life changes. Well, first and foremost, the fact that I had to quit my job. I left power and money behind. That is not easy. But yet, when you're faced with these adversities, there are certain decisions you've got to make, and that was one of the decisions I made. And disability in your family really affects the whole family. And it's hard, to persevere, and it's hard to break through the discrimination, because as much as we hate to admit it, there's a lot of discrimination too when it comes to disability. And the discrimination comes in because people are not very educated. The disabled person, they're real people. They have feelings, and they have ideas, and they have lots that they can contribute to society, such as Victoria. And that was one of the things that I remember when I was at home with Victoria, as I was dealing with many cases, helping people and so forth. I remember thinking, I will never feel that I'm a victim. I'm going to turn this thing around and show how you can turn, as they say, lemons into lemonade. And I certainly did. But the biggest task, though, besides helping people with disabilities, was to also instill in Victoria that it's very important that, yes, we are aware of our limitations. We all have them, some more than others. But however, you have a purpose. And there's meaning to what you do. And through that, confidence, I guess, is what you can call it, you will gain the respect and a good rapport of those around you. I've instilled Victoria through the years with a lot of that nurturing. And lo and behold, Victoria has attained quite a bit, considering the fact that she's disabled. Victoria was nominated for 3 years to be the youth ambassador for the Society for Manitobans with Disabilities. She was a spokesperson and did a lot of campaigns for them and so forth. But also, mainly, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing that I'm very proud of in terms of Victoria, is the fact that last year, the Paralympians, the main office out in Ottawa, came to Winnipeg to meet with Victoria because they wanted to recruit her to train for the Paralympics due to come out for 2016. She's currently training as she's an avid swimmer. Although she has, as I explained, a disability, nothing holds her back. And I think it's very important to have that spark, that fire, which is what Victoria really, really emanates if you ever had the opportunity to meet her. So basically, the moral of the story was how an adverse situation, and believe me, as I said earlier, having a disability, I don't personally have one, but being affected by a disability is not an easy thing to embrace. It takes a lot of soul searching, perseverance, but also it takes a lot of belief in knowing who you are and how you can turn the whole situation around to be a positive influence within your family, within your environment, and within the community. My company has been around for a few years, as I explained, for 10 years. And as a result, I've acquired many relationships and partnerships through the years. And one of the biggest partnerships that I've acquired was with the Royal Bank. And that itself is an interesting story. The federal government, I'm sure perhaps you may not have heard, a few years ago created a program called the Registered disability savings plan. And it's, of course, for people with disabilities. However, before you are able to open that plan up, you need a disability program to be enforced in your life because of a disability you have. And that program is called the Disability Tax Credit, which is one of the services I provide. Anyways, what the federal government was observing was they were offering this wonderful plan, and yet no one was opening up these plans. They had put up hundreds of millions of dollars because the government matches what the person puts into the plan. And no one was tapping into this. So they did a huge research survey report, and the results were not very promising. Basically, the moral of the story was not many plans were being opened. The bank, the Royal Bank, acknowledged and recognized that. And they figured they wanted to make a difference in the community of the disabled. So the president of the Royal Bank had called me, and that was quite interesting. When I received a call from the president of the Royal Bank, I thought it was a joke that someone was playing a prank on me, but in fact it was the president himself. And the call really was to initiate a meeting so we could partner up, because myself, would be a gateway for the Royal Bank to reach out to the disabled community. Anyways, we got together, we partnered up, as we would say, and we've been helping many, many families get the proper programs in place, but mainly get them set up financially. Because statistics say that the majority of our poverty, and this is worldwide, it's a fact, poverty lays where there's disability. And in our society, in Canadian society, it's a proven statistic that the elderly are very impoverished if they fall under the disabled category. Because through life, they were not able to work, they were not able to save and acquire any money for them to live in their later years. The Registered Disability Savings Plan is to help reduce poverty. So this is a huge endeavor that I took on with the Royal Bank to make a difference, not only within Manitoba, but also throughout our nation, which is the market that I serve. I serve people all across Canada when it comes to disability programs. So anyways, I guess the moral of the story really at the end of the day is what may seem adverse, yes, a disability is an adverse situation in a family's life, doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the world. We all have gifts, we all have ability, and it's important to put those gifts and ability into action. And I'm a living testimonial. I've helped many, many, many exercise their rights, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Thank you.